Et maintenant, sans plus tarder, il est reconnu mondialement à cause de son TED Talk, le légendaire, l'unique Mr. Dave Connery.
Wow, c'est quelque chose, ça. Bonjour tout le monde. Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Does everybody hear me? Outstanding. I see the thumbs up. All right. Well, good afternoon or good morning to everybody, wherever you are. Employment programs is what I have here at the agency. Oh, I see somebody's mute has just come off. I'll give it a sec. So employment programs here at the agency, it means things like non-EX staffing, performance management, classification, official languages, employment equity and diversity, and the like. I actually started at CRA as a collection officer in Calgary, embarrassingly back when green screen terminals were on our desks and Windows was the new hot thing. Since then, I've been trying my steady best to try a pretty wide range of roles. So all that to say is I haven't grown up in HR. I was asked to come and talk about the approach that we've taken to innovative projects like staffing redesign, PM redesign, and others. How do we make that happen? Now, real innovative work like that is happening across all the public service. It is frankly a wonderful time to be in the public service if you're into transformative change and a lot of late nights and corn chip dinners. For the internal services in particular, though, your HR, finance, real property, security, IT, there is a particular opportunity because what we do directly impacts the amount of time, talent, tools, energy available to some 250,000 public servants to do, well, everything from stamping passports to collecting taxes and delivering on social programs. How that is done in practice is different everywhere you go, but I think that beyond all-star talent, beyond getting all the funding you need, beyond being in the right place at the right time, is creating the right kind of culture and mindset. There are, of course, many ways to do that, but today I'm going to tell you a little bit about mine. Permettez-moi de commencer avec une petite histoire d'une vie antérieure. Quand ma barbe était noire, il y a, je vais dire, plusieurs années, je dirigeais la fonction consultative en gestion financière dans un autre ministère, qu'est-ce qu'on appelle les FMA. Les conseilleurs avaient la capacité de faire pas mal tout, des relevés des fins d'exercice jusqu'à la préparation d'un gâteau de fête en utilisant pas mal juste Excel et MS Paint. Peu de temps après mon arrivée, on a appris que le ministère aurait besoin de s'adapter car il y aurait moins de fonds disponibles. Par conséquent, nous avions besoin des idées créatives pour déterminer où nous pourrions réduire nos activités. Alors, naturellement, je me suis tourné à les conseilleurs en gestion financière. Ils connaissent les directions générales comme le fond de leur poche, ils tiennent des registres depuis des années, ils savent où trouvent toutes les lacunes. Ils doivent certainement avoir des idées créatives. Savez-vous la réponse que j'ai eue de pas mal tout le monde? The answer I got was, I don't know, call the branch heads. This isn't our job. So that's right. The finance people felt that it was not their job to come up with strategies on finance issues. Now, having spent years in some of the most innovative parts of finance function at CRA, I was flabbergasted. So after I got over the shock, I went out and talked to people, and I learned a few really important lessons about how organization culture really gets shaped. For example, for many in this particular shop at that time, being a good FMA meant that you ensured that the numbers that the branch heads were looking at were accurate and clear, and that is important. Being good at that, though, meant in particular that the boat was always stable. Okay? That kind of thing got you positive praise. It got you promoted. And when a single FMA had suggested something outside the box to help speed up the reporting process, they had, apparently, been yelled at in the middle of a team meeting and told to essentially stay in their lane. Now, that meeting was years ago, and people were still talking about it. And of course, because, we're all human, they were shaping their decisions accordingly. Bottom line, as a leader, you can talk a good game, but people will respond to the environment that the leader creates by how the leader actually behaves. So let's fast forward to the work here at CRA. The innovative stuff that has made much of our success possible was not from me, but I definitely made it a priority to ensure that I built the right environment for it. First, I spent a lot of time with people, understanding the reality they operated in and the incentives that shaped why things were the way they were. I mean, I still have coffee with a random person in my org nearly every day, It's been about a dozen years since I started it, and it is still hands down the best management practice I ever put in, even though it's all virtual now. Second, I made sure that the boss and I were on the same page on what was important. Now, as you may know, my ADM of HR here is Dan Couture, and he is frankly all about being client-centric, so that was a pretty easy sell. Come to think of it, HRB is senior management table is stacked with some amazingly talented and forward-thinking folks, so support there wasn't an issue either. Now, working with my team, I used what we learned there to shape my message and my principles. In short, that the challenge going forward was not in being fully audit-proof and having policies that covered every possible outcome. That is Grandpappy's family recipe for administrative molasses. Instead, the goal tied to the clerk's own messaging was to use our intellect and experience to figure out how to make internal services simpler and faster while ensuring that we met our obligations. That, my friends, is a very different mindset. Now, of course, all that is quite nice to wish for, but to make it real, we opted very publicly to put down a set of clear principles that would guide everything we did. Now, there are 10, and you can always Google my name to find the rest of them. But let me give you just the first few so you can get a sense of the flavor, the kind of culture that we were trying to create. So imagine that you work with me and you're looking at some process that we own. My expectation is that you will start with the assumption that the user is overly busy, tired, and looking for simplicity when they first start to interact with your service. No one needs to read the manual for their banking app, because some very smart people figured out how to do some very complicated things in a way so that you wouldn't have to. You just swipe. Secondly, designing for the client means designing with the client and that there is no substitute. So many of the painful processes we all have to deal with were designed by well-intentioned people who thought they understood the reality at the other end, but they're frankly just too far away from it to really see it. And lastly, challenge everything. Sometimes a rule is really just a custom, and sometimes rules can be changed. Honestly, this was a huge thing, even just for us internally, within the culture. I can remember having one of my own people complaining about a policy stopping us from fixing some arcane rule about how we hired students. And we are the people in charge of that policy. If we feel helpless, just imagine how it is for everyone else. À ma grande surprise, ces principes que nous avons publiés ont été consultés plus de 25 000 fois sur Twitter, plus de 2000 fois sur medium.com et publié à canada.ca et d'autres places et d'autres gouvernements. Bien sûr, les premières centaines de clics, je te garantis, c'était probablement ma mère. Mais quand même, c'était une quantité surprenante pour le trafic pour quelque chose qui est back-office. Ce que nous avons réalisé, c'était qu'il y avait une énorme frustration refoulée avec des processus lourds et internes, si disconnectés de l'expérience du monde réel à l'autre bout. Franchement, c'est le genre de problème de quand grenouille dans l'eau tranquillement bouillante qui fait que les choses comme une période de 6 mois pour doter un poste dans la fonction publique semble être quelque chose qui est normal. C'est pas normal, c'est ridicule et on sait que c'est ridicule. Je mentionnerais franchement que les pilotes que nous faisions dans le nouveau processus qu'on a eu avec la refonte de dotation fait tout ça dans une fraction du temps, mais je m'éloigne du sujet. Back to our story. These principles didn't just sit on a wall. They were written in 2018, and I still use them as my guide for the kind of questions that I ask people when they bring proposals forward. Things like, what client did we try this out with? Is this the simplest way to get this thing done? What is the policy or legislation that says that we have to do this? Can I eliminate a handoff somewhere in this process? The people who work in my org know already that this is where I'm going to go, so they end up working along these lines before it even comes to me, which is wonderful. And when there's an opportunity to explore ideas, even if I might have thought the idea was a bad one, we make every effort to try and ensure that it gets a fair hearing and we talk about it in a supportive way. I mean, I've had honestly too many bad ideas myself to really put any effort into criticizing others for it. For crying out loud, I wore acid wash jeans in high school for years. I thought it was a good idea, and come to think of it, may shine some light on why I'm basically banned from home decor choices here. What is important in this is that you pick up the next ball and keep trying. The days of writing some all-encompassing policy or process and leaving it for 10 years are over. Next, I picked people with the mindset to take on the tough stuff, and I dedicated resources to it rather than pretending that my already busy all-stars could rebuild some 20-year-old calcified system off the side of their desks. I will tell you that realizing this has been one of the hardest lessons learned over my career. The work we are doing and the principles we've advocated also turned out to be quite a recruiting bonus, actually. You'd be amazed at how many people, me included, seek meaning and purpose in their work. They want to make a difference. And seeing these results changes helped change some of the mindsets of some of the people we already had. Of course, this didn't happen overnight, but we've been at this for years. And lastly, I stood by my people, especially when things went wrong, and they did, so that they would know in their heart of hearts that I had their backs as we went into uncharted territory. Who knew, frankly, that having such a generously padded backside would turn out to be a career advantage? But there you go. Enfin, j'aimerais vous laisser sur ce point. En tant que dirigeant, nous influençons l'eau dans laquelle tout le monde nage. Vous avez une incidence sur la direction du courant, sur l'épaisseur de l'eau, si elle est calme ou agitée, ainsi que le sentiment de sécurité de les nageurs eux-mêmes. Plus important encore, vous façonnez un peu plus chaque jour cet environnement en fonction de vos priorités, les mots que vous choisissez, les décisions que vous prenez. Il est peut-être difficile de faire ressortir un véritable esprit d'innovation dans une organisation, mais il peut également s'agir d'une des tâches les plus satisfaisantes que vous avez jamais accomplies. Je me sens incroyablement privilégié de faire ce que je peux faire avec les groupes que je le fais. Et je vous remercie pour l'opportunité aujourd'hui de partager de mes expériences. I'll now turn it back over to the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. A few things that I think we'll be seeing more of in the next few months will be perhaps youngsters with acid wash jeans making a comeback, and hopefully they will also be sporting T-shirts that say, being audit-proof is not sexy, because that is a great lesson we can take away from your presentation. Thank you so much. All right, Madame Valerie Engelhardt from the Impact and Innovation Unit at PCO. If you're ready, ma'am, the floor is yours. She's also wonderful and incredible, although I did not proceed her presentation with that. Please hold. Will be a moment.
Okay, sorry, my system crashed. I'm going to try this again. Bonjour tout le monde. Apologies for that. Let me try this again. Hopefully everyone can see the presentation. Donc, bonjour tout le monde. Tel que mentionné par Jasmine, mon nom est Valérie Engelhardt. Je suis la gestionnaire du programme du fellowship au bureau du conseil privé et je suis ravie de vous parler cet après-midi. The Impact and Innovation Unit implemented the fellowship program in January 2018 to specifically attract external talent with specialized skill set in key disciplines with a focus in behavioral science and challenge prizes with aim to increase capacity and upskill the existing workforce. Why did we do this? Because there's a direct implication to support Impact Canada's mandate to apply innovative approaches, add further rigor in experimentation, strengthen evidence for policy decisions, and ultimately drive better outcomes for Canadians. En plus d'une plateforme de recrutement, nous établissons des partenariats avec des entrepreneurs clés. Nous développons un curriculum sur mesure pour les individus et les cohortes qui se joignent au programme du fellowship, et nous avons ainsi un curriculum continu qui consiste d'apprentissage, de développement, de coaching, d'encadrement et de mentorat. Nos campagnes de recrutement sont exécutées en 90 jours et nos campagnes les plus fructueuses ont été complétées en 42 jours, quelque chose sur lequel nous sommes très fiers. Unlike traditional staffing, experience is not deemed an essential criteria in the fellowship program. CVs and cover letters are actually not even used as part of the screening criteria. The focus is strictly on technical skills and one's ability to apply those technical skills in a public policy context. This slide provides you with an example of a type of question that we could ask upon intake. This demonstrates 2 questions in the behavioral science cohort where we will ask applicants to submit their response and allow us to assess their technical skills. Throughout the entire recruitment process, we continuously reassess technical skills by taking a deeper dive, and only those who can demonstrate the ability to apply technical skills and competencies make it through all the way to the end. While opportunities are posted on jobs.gc.ca, we have developed our own intake forms and receive applications directly into the fellowship mailbox, which has created some efficiencies in time. We use social media to advertise our recruitment campaigns, as well as welcome cohort fellows into the program. So I will point out here, we do what is called a pull quote to introduce those joining the public service. PCO HR has entrusted us with leading and managing recruitment processes from start to end. Our work unit leads on the evaluation tools, determining eligibility at intake, maintaining the screening board reports, issuing notifications, and so much more. The model agreed upon with PCO HR reduces the burden on HR, yet maintains that important connection back to them. Ceci nous permet d'avancer de façon beaucoup plus rapide et efficace. Et dans certains cas, nous administrons certaines étapes en parallèle de l'une et l'autre. Un exemple pourrait tirer sur le fait que quand nous administrons les références, nous prenons de l'avance et nous entamons le processus de vérification de sécurité à la même fois. Donc, ceci nous permet d'avancer dans nos processus plus rapidement et de conclure d'une façon plus rapidement également. Les prochaines diapos soulignent les bénéfices clés du programme du point de vue de l'organisme d'accueil et du point de vue de la gestion d'un fellow. The Impact and Innovation Unit pairs pre-qualified subject matter experts to key government priorities. I won't cover all of the suite of programs that we've supported, but I'll name a few, such as food waste reduction, Canada Learning Bond, remote healthcare, and transportation safety. Les fellows sont et demeurent des employés du BCP tout au long de leur tenure du programme. Ils s'intègrent à l'organisation d'accueil comme n'importe quel autre employé de cette organisation, avec accès au réseau et tout. Les organisations d'accueil n'ont pas besoin d'un poste classifié vacant pour accueillir un fellow. L'accord entre nous et le ministère d'accueil est exclusivement financier, qui est un atout pour un vaste nombre d'organisations. Donc, the Impact and Innovation Unit places a high importance on fellows' early and ongoing success. It all starts from day one. We develop a tailored onboarding session. Depending on the fellow, it could be 1 week or 2 week integration upfront that is specifically designed to them, where we cover aspects around the machinery of government, policies, processes. We take a deep dive into their project work, and we coordinate the transfer into their host organization and introduce them to their team. From day one, fellows have the added benefit of co-leadership and mentoring from both their host and home organization managers right at the start of the journey. This has proven to be quite successful and fruitful, especially to those joining the public service as a first entry point. Notre très petite équipe est fière de ce qu'elle a accompli en 3 ans. Nous travaillons fort à tous les jours pour améliorer et approfondir la valeur du programme pour l'ensemble de la fonction publique, ainsi qu'à mener des meilleurs résultats pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes. For example, the application of behavioral science has played a key role in the government's pandemic response, which has led to a dedicated cohort of behavioral scientists being embedded directly within the Public Health Agency of Canada. The IIU is also working with ECCC and NRCan to adopt a similar model to further advance the climate change portfolio. We are also working in collaboration with the United Kingdoms to exchange best practices and lessons learned and exploring potential international cohort for fellowship programs alike. While there is much more that could be said about the fellowship program, including demographics on applicants, lessons learned in recruitment and onboarding, and partnership building, I recognize that our time is limited today, so I'll stop here to turn for questions. Merci à tous, et si vous désirez d'en apprendre davantage sur le programme, n'hésitez pas à communiquer avec nous.
Merci Valérie. Excellente présentation. Si tu permets, on va partager votre compte Twitter dans notre chat. Et il y a aussi des demandes par rapport à si on peut partager la présentation. On l'a en français et en anglais, donc on va la mettre dans le chat. On va aussi la partager sur notre wiki et sur GC Collab après l'événement, ainsi que les enregistrements des présentations. Donc, merci Madame Engelhardt. Stand by, there will be questions and I'll be filling them to you. Et maintenant, messieurs, dames, the incredible, the one and only, the francophone, Mr. Guy Genet et Madame Julie Daigle.
Merci, Jasmine. Alors, je vais tenter de projeter ma présentation. Est-ce que vous voyez la présentation?
Oui,
Jasmine? Parfait, good. So, hi everyone, bonjour tout le monde. First, I have a bad tendency to switch from English to French without realizing it. So, Jasmine, keep me on par. I'll try to do one slide in each language. Alors, la présentation d'aujourd'hui, c'est pour un peu vous raconter une histoire qui aurait pu s'appeler Once Upon a Time, an Impossible Mission. But we transformed it into a possible mission for the Service Canada Quebec region. To give you an idea, the mandate that I got as the director of the regional recruitment center was to hire 1,000 new recruits at the level CR4 PM1 for in a region already 4,000 strong. All of that starting in December. Well, it's written November there, but the poster was live on December 3rd. All of that completed before the end of this fiscal year. We had about 50 processes that were already launched in the process. La plupart de ces processus-là étaient des processus à entrée continue, très ciblés, très longs. Donc, il y avait un besoin là, de centraliser le tout. Alors, le mandat en tant que tel, c'était oui de soutenir les efforts de recrutement qui étaient présentement en place, de réduire la période d'un processus ça jouait autour de 100 jours, 120 jours, à une moyenne de 40 jours. Donc, le mandat était de le faire en 40 jours. Vous le voyez de toute façon, décembre à mars, j'avais pas beaucoup de jeux pour compléter le processus. Et aussi prioriser l'équité en matière d'emploi. So we made a commitment that 25% of all new hires would be coming from employment equity. We had some gaps. I hate to use that word, but it is a fact to achieve a just representativity for people with disability and Indigenous. For visible minority, we were not in a situation that we were not representative, but with 1,000 new hire, there was a strong risk that we would flip on the non-representation side. Alors, c'était le mandat. Je me suis équipé, on a mobilisé beaucoup de joueurs. Deux gestionnaires de projets qui sont venus nous aider. On a fait une campagne de rayonnement. 17 personnes sont venues nous aider. Je vais en parler un petit peu plus tard. Et on est allé chercher une dizaine de personnes, des agents de recrutement, pour venir nous supporter dans ce mandat-là. Bon, les principaux partenaires, c'est certain, les RH stratégiques, les RH au national pour nous. On a une équipe de support administratif, les communications naturellement, approvisionnement, nous avions besoin d'un contrat en place, la commission de la fonction publique et les différentes lignes d'affaires. Donc, nous avons créé un comité aviseur, Advisory Committee, qui se rencontrait à tous les semaines pour faire le point sur l'avancement des travaux concernant ce processus-là qu'on lançait à Service Canada, Région du Québec. Valerie, you said it. For us too, ton passé, tes expériences de travail, it was irrelevant to us. We didn't ask for a resume. We didn't ask for a cover letter. You needed to apply, and you were going to be tested on 4 competencies. Capacité de raisonnement et d'analyse, attitude axée sur le client, être consciencieux et la capacité d'adaptation qui était une nouvelle compétence qu'on a ajoutée, qui était devenue nécessaire dans un contexte de pandémie et qui va probablement être le futur aussi d'une compétence qu'on devra ajouter à nos énoncés de critères de mérite. Et encore, même le poster, il y avait 25% des embauches qui allaient se faire pour les groupes d'équité en matière d'emploi. My team, we were doing from the poster up to the pool, the creation of the pool, and the business lines were taking it from there. So doing the contact, the meet and greet, the best fit, the whole process of onboarding was done by the business lines per se. This will be shared, and you have a link to the poster. The poster was written in a plain language, alors un langage simple, non gouvernemental, que le commun des mortels peut comprendre. Je ne sais pas pour vous, là, mais moi, des fois, je lis certains ECM, et même moi qui ai 20 ans d'expérience dans la fonction publique, je m'y perds. Donc, j'imagine un Canadien moyen assis chez lui devant son ordinateur, il doit être complètement découragé face aux ECM qu'on voit souvent, qui sont trop complexes pour rien. Donc, on avait aussi le mandat de réduire la taille de l'ECM, de le rendre le plus plain language possible. Ce qu'on a fait. Vous irez le voir. On a fait une vaste campagne de rayonnement, donc 650 organismes ont été contactés, in particular people with disability, indigenous communities, cégep and university in the Quebec region, and tous les organismes qui viennent en aide aux Canadiens à la recherche d'un emploi ont été contactés. Ça s'est fait pendant les 4 premiers jours de l'affichage. L'affichage a été 9 jours ouvrables. Donc, on a eu 17 employés mobilisés au téléphone, à travers les courriels. Je vais vous montrer les affiches plus tard, les affiches de promotion de nos postes à Service Canada. Alors, il y a eu, c'était notre marketing, si on veut, 1000 postes disponibles à Service Canada, commencé de 2021 à 9. On a vraiment focalisé sur est-ce que aider fait partie de votre ADN, qui est la mission première de Service Canada, aider les Canadiens à naviguer là, à travers les différentes étapes de leur vie. Donc, on a même mentionné de nos bureaux ou en télétravail. We took the decision that all new employees would work from home. On a éclaté l'empreinte opérationnelle, donc les employés sont équipés à la maison pour travailler. C'était aussi un souhait de notre sous-ministre adjointe. Vous avez ici en anglais et l'autre aussi qui a circulé à travers Facebook. On a encouragé les employés à relayer le message eux-mêmes et quand tu cliques, ça allait directement sur le poster, là, sur le système de la Commission de la fonction publique, emploi.gc.ca. La stratégie d'évaluation, naturellement, en période de pandémie, il n'était pas question de faire des tests papier-crayon. So we decided to have a contract with EPSI and 2 tests for the 4 competencies were used. On a eu la chance qu'il y avait déjà un contremaître à l'intérieur de SDC, Capacity On-Demand Contract, that we could just piggyback on it. So that was great. Not having that would have been more difficult, I think. Voilà, parce que c'est très long obtenir un contrat, comme on le sait tous. We also align all the process that were ongoing. So on a fermé les processus entrée continue. We closed all ongoing processes. The assessment was aligned. So even if your SOMC had 1,000 competencies to be evaluated, you were going to evaluate only on the 4 that became the main 4 competencies that we wanted to hire, and those employees, those candidates would be qualified and move forward towards employment. On a aussi réévalué les besoins des lignes d'affaires à tous les semaines et on suivait l'avancement de la dotation et du onboarding de semaine en semaine pour nous assurer qu'on allait rencontrer l'objectif de dépasser le 1000 nouvelles embauches avant la fin de l'année fiscale. On a aussi mis en place des stratégies d'intégration, integration strategies, to help managers with this overflow of new employees, with 25% coming from employment equity. So in Formation Kit, we put in place a peer partner program. So employees that were already employees at Service Canada could register and become a peer partner for new employees, for Indigenous or people with living with a disability. Also provided regional orientation sessions, and awareness also was done in the meet and greet interviews with new employees and managers. For people with disability, we did put in place, and that's why Julie Degg is there, because she's managing that that one-stop shop to help managers onboarding new employees living with a disability. So all the duty to accommodate, making the link with the manager, and etc., to ensure that the employee feels that he's fully integrated and rightfully integrated within our department. And the rest are the same that we did put in place for Indigenous. I'm trying to go fast, Jasmine. I don't know if I'm out of time. You have the sequence of event here. The ID was there on November 17th. I got a mandate, work on it on a SAMC, ensure it's posted as fast as possible, and you have 40 days to deliver. You'll see the results later on, but we did deliver on time. Some results: more than 8,500 candidates did apply. 6,865 were Canadian citizens, so we prioritized them. We invited 3,950 employees, keeping 50 for priorities that could be referred by the PSC. Out of that, 1,460 something qualified, and you have here PM1, how many PM1 and how many CR4s, and how many in the employment equity, the 2 groups that we were closely following to ensure that we were meeting our target of 25%. That would be employment equity. The first offer was made to an employee 27 business days after the poster went live on December 3rd. Very proud of that. And the first cohort of new employees started right bang on 40 days, business days after the poster was went live. And here you have some details. 375 offers were made to PM1s, and out of that, 268 are employment equity, and same thing for CR4s. Our need was really at the PM1 level for that court. Here you see only the people that were appointed based on that process. All of the other processes that we aligned, we also took in consideration employment equity for those processes. And you have more results here about how many referrals were made to the business lines, how many offers, how many acceptance, and how much in employment equity. I'm very proud to say that more than 52%, 50% were employment equity of new hires with that process. I'm an old diversity champion, so that was really something that I wanted to achieve, and I'm proud of the team and all of that. So here we go. In a grab at a higher level, we did achieve 1,104 new employees at Service Canada from December up to the end of this fiscal year. And we had that infographie qu'on suivait à tous les semaines, bilateral with the ADM every week to see where we were and comment on avançait là-dedans. in the midst, and I think David, you're from CRA. We learned that CRA was to launch a process SP3, SP4 for those who are not ceux qui sont pas habitués avec les group and level. SP3, SP4 is the same level as CR4, PM1, but paid $4,000 more each per year. So when I heard that, we enter in contact with CRA and say, you can't launch that process because you're going to come and, you know, screw literally everything I'm trying to do now, because the new employees will apply on your process, will leave, and so on. So on a fait une entente où j'ai partagé avec eux 1821 candidats. Et eux ont pris l'engagement de ne pas lancer un nouveau processus SP3, SP4, so it would prevent our own employees to apply. For the future, we're working together with them to eventually launch a joint process in September, next September, that we would use the same kind of methodology of that expedited process that we just launched in December. It's going to be quite a challenge because on n'est pas l'ARC n'est pas sous la loi sur l'emploi dans la fonction publique. C'est pas les mêmes règles de dotation, etc. But we want to make it happen. So we'll see where we go with that. A lot of negotiation ongoing, and I always use the why not. Let's do it. So maybe I'll come back to you and talk about the good work that we're trying to do with CRA. What we could have done better, les contraintes, la capacité de faire des tests de la CFP, à même le processus, sans un papier-crayon. On peut les faire non supervisés, mais il faut les faire revérifier la compétence par la suite. Ça reste un enjeu. Le potentiel d'utiliser des tests de personnalité qui est pas possible. Il faut avoir des tests basés sur les compétences acquises ou obtenir une approbation de la CFP qui peut prendre jusqu'à 1 mois et plus. Donc, ça aussi, on veut gratter ça un peu. How can we get better as using personality tests? Les fonctionnalités du système aussi, avec 8000 candidats, c'était très dur de faire les ponctions de données, les transférer, etc. Donc, ça aussi, on veut essayer d'améliorer la façon dont on pourrait interagir avec PSRS. Puis, on a eu la chance d'avoir une exclusion de la zone nationale de sélection. Donc, le processus a été affiché seulement pour les codes postaux du Québec, soit tu avais ta résidence ou ton lieu de travail dans les codes postaux du Québec. Ça va tomber probablement, cette exclusion-là, à la zone nationale de sélection, parce que c'est notre sous-ministre qui nous l'a donné. Donc, je pense qu'on a à se questionner sur the need of a national zone for what kind of process and how we do it. Parce que ça ne veut pas dire que tu as une zone nationale de sélection, que tu es automatiquement legit, puis tu ne contrains pas à une des valeurs de la dotation qui est l'accessibilité. Je pense qu'on a de bonnes questions à se poser en tant que recruteur sur la façon et où on affiche nos processus. So, in a nutshell, very fast, that was my story. So, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
That was a really good story. Thank you for sharing. So people are super impressed. They're impressed with you, Dave, Val, everyone's sharing stories about innovating within the federal public service. You were bold enough to call it, let's be honest and call it Mission Impossible. And then I like your attitude where you say, why not? Because dealing with people who are outside of core public administration and who are subject to different set of rules, such as the Canada Revenue Agency, and also an equally big machine as ESDC, presents some very interesting challenges. So for sure, we will ask you to come back and present on those challenges, because I think it's the way forward and we need to do more of it. And I love collaboration and innovation. So there, let's jump to a few questions. Valerie and David, if you're still there, I'm going to invite you to turn your cameras back on, because I have a specific question for you, all three of you. People may defer to the, oh, but you know what? You're ESDC, you're big. You're CRA, you're big. You're PCO, you can do whatever you want. Do you think that has ever been an excuse? And how can we, other public servants, get over those hurdles? I'll let the lady speak first, Madam Engelhardt. She raised her hand. Oh, good for you.
I didn't know you were going to turn to me. That's why I raised my hand. So for me, I don't think so. I don't think that being within the Privy Council office had any sway in the matter, because like I didn't cover the challenges that we faced internally, but like it took us a lot to get HR to even agree to this, to the point where we actually had to put in writing that we will take full accountability if it doesn't go well. So no, it's not because we're at PCO. I would say what worked in our benefit was that we had a champion. Our assistant secretary and our deputy minister stood behind this initiative. They saw the importance of recruiting for different type of skill sets and the need for it and the gaps within the public service. And so with their support and their buy-in, we were able to present this and move forward, as well as leverage the existing flexibilities within the Public Service Employment Act. There's a lot there that I don't know how familiar managers across the public service are, but there's probably more that they can do without even being aware of being able to leverage that. And I saw in one of the Slido questions, like someone asked something around like, you know, HR and managers on how to get them to be like more agile or inclusive or diversified. And I think it's a question of, you know, even helping HR along and getting to the point where that might not have how it was done in the past, but let's work together and see how we can leverage and educate, you know, managers and really form a partnership, because that's really what has allowed us to like solidify the way forward is working collaboratively with HR and not working in like un environnement de résistance, si tu veux. Donc, je vais laisser Guy et David adresser la même question parce que leur réalité est potentiellement différente, mais juste comme mettre le point sur c'est pas simple. Je ne crois pas que c'est simple dans aucune organisation et encore moins au BCP. Si jamais il y a quelqu'un qui est intéressé à savoir c'est quoi les défis et les montagnes qu'on a dû affronter, ça va me faire plaisir. Mais juste pour vous dire, c'était pas juste une question de on veut ça, donc on fait ça. C'était une question de on veut ça et puis beaucoup de headbanging.
Oh, t'es sur mute, Jasmine.
Non, je faisais exprès.
Ah!
Thank you. Mr. Conabry, I think you mentioned something about the importance of standing by your staff when hurdles come along. And I think that really speaks a lot to what Valerie just shared with us.
Oh, God, do I ever agree? And I agree with pretty much everything she said, especially the headbanging part. It's one of those things that, especially because the focus from my side is, is in terms of internal services as a whole, because I've worked in most of them now to do this same sort of stuff. It's just no matter what organization you're in, stuff builds up in layers. Somebody does something unfortunate and there's a new rule, a new process, a new this, a new that, and it happens slowly. And then all of a sudden you don't even see it anymore because it's just part of the way things are. And to break through that, you really have to sort of make a decision as an organization, as Valerie was just saying, like have the guts. Like she want to, go out there, we'll take the responsibility. We are going to do it. It is important to have those people at the table, who are sometimes the naysayers, because sometimes they're right and they've got important information, but not necessarily to put those same folks in charge of driving that process. That's the difference of putting folks that, we are going to push and we're going to take risks as we go through this, and not everything's going to work out. And we're going to tell everybody right from the start it's not going to work out, but I'm not going to bet the farm and say, we're going to do like the large scale experiment with XYZ that's going to impact everybody before we've tried it. If we're sure that, we think there's risk, then we try and do it small, but we keep pushing, and every one of those builds on each other until people realize, holy cow, like there really was space to do stuff here, and it bleeds into other things.
Monsieur Genet, est-ce que vous avez rencontré des obstacles ou ça a été facile?
Oh non, c'était plein d'obstacles. Puis je pense que même une grande organisation peut être plus un enjeu qu'une petite, selon moi. Because everybody has their own ideas, everybody wants to put their grain of salt, and everybody we always do that like that. To me, it was always, c'est comme ça qu'il faut que ça se fasse. It's like that we need to do it. Okay, why? Where is it written? What's Is it legislated? No, I can do it. I can do what I want. I'm director. J'ai mes délégations RH. Let me do give me an opinion. Give me the pros and cons, and I'll take the decision. Ça a été ça beaucoup surtout dans l'écriture de l'ECM, dans l'outil d'évaluation. It was always, well, oh, you can't do that. Why? So, c'est toujours comme ça. Mais je pense qu'il y a un shift, là, définitivement. Est-ce qu'elle est pandémique ou est-ce que c'est la pandémie qui nous amène là à changer notre mindset ou quoi que ce soit? Mais je pense qu'il y en est un tournant là, qu'il faut passer de la parole aux actes en termes de réellement améliorer, faciliter. Et I hate the red tapes. We need to get rid of it as much as possible, please, at every level. So that would be my pick on the question.
C'est bon, merci beaucoup. Juste parce qu'on a parlé de ce qui est requis en termes de changement, principalement dans nos têtes, Guy l'a mentionné. Est-ce que ça fait partie d'une loi? Non. OK, alors procédons autrement. Et puis, c'est le cadre vraiment qui nous guide. Si on n'enfreint pas de loi, si on est en train de se conformer à tout ce qui est requis par la Commission de la fonction publique, il n'y a rien qui nous empêche d'innover. Or, on n'innove pas tant que ça au sein de la fonction publique. Surtout peut-être pas au niveau des ressources humaines, parce que pour toutes sortes de raisons, bonnes et mauvaises. Et une des questions dans Slido est on a mentionné les changements qui étaient nécessaires pour engendrer un petit peu, peut-être adopter une nouvelle direction. Donc, quand on parle des bons comportements, comment est-ce qu'on fait en sorte que nos collègues, que les gens à la table soient plus agiles, soient plus inclusifs et soient aussi, je vais l'ajouter, mais ce n'était pas dans la question, orientés vers le futur. On a une perspective qui est plus sur, je sais pas, les 7 prochaines générations, les 30 prochaines années, et moins vers le regard par en arrière qui est peut-être l'équité en matière d'emploi, des lois un petit peu désuètes. Donc, comment est-ce qu'on fait pour maintain that vision, that future-oriented vision, and to convince others of how essential it is? Easy question, so we'll start with Dave.
Pas de problème. Franchement, je trouve que les gens répondent à l'environnement qui est là. Comme ça, il faut commencer quelque part. Prendre entre nous autres de décider, on va le faire. Et quand on fait ça, puis on commence, on a des petits succès, on en parle, les gens répondent à ça. Finalement, eux autres vont commencer avec leur idée, ils vont se mettre là-dedans parce qu'ils voient qu'il there's a trend, there's a direction that's going. It's seeing it all of the time, like actually seeing it and talking about it. Like we don't shut up about it. We talk about it all the time in terms of this piece to encourage the culture to constantly go in this direction. Every time there's a small success, especially at the beginning, on n'arrêtait pas d'en parler, on en mettait partout. Tu avais un courriel, on en parlait tout le temps because it was super important to build up that environment. And it's not unchangeable at all. It's very much built on that and the momentum. And right now, your momentum for this just could not be better. Like even in the virtual world in particular. Like look at me. Like I came in. I originally started in Calgary. Now I was lucky. My wife's amazing. She was willing to move the family several times to change jobs. But most folks, many of which were far better than me, couldn't do that because, life. They had families and stuff that, where they couldn't do that. In this world right now, we are able to access and tap into talent from across the country in ways we couldn't do before. I think the timing of this is wonderful. I'll turn it over to Guy. Si vous voulez ajouter.
Ouais, David, je pense que j'ai pas beaucoup à ajouter. Je pense que we can't sit and say, oh, well, nothing's going to change. Somebody needs to step up and make the change. And I think that also within departments, we had silos. So imagine interdepartmental collaboration. So if a department starts to collaborate, that will be the real change that we want to see for the future of the public service and recruitment in the public service and retention of talent. Because are we attractive? Maybe for certain people, yes. For the majority, I have to say probably not. So how do we become attractive and how do we, because the experience of a candidate starts with him reading the SOMSI. up to his first day and so on. So we need to pay attention and really be attractive at every level. That would be my answer.
Just on that, Guy, similarly to what you described when you delivered your presentation around the SumC, like what we've done is we outline very clearly what the job is in very simple, plain language, and this is what you can expect from a day-to-day, and allow someone to understand how it is they can, add value to the organization or organizations in our context, because it's multiple, and really, have like the opportunity of making a meaningful contribution in an area that's of interest to them. So I do agree, like we've asked people coming through the fellowship program, like, was the public service an employer of choice? And it wasn't. So when we asked, well, then why did you apply to the fellowship program? And then they said, because I could see an opportunity where I could apply my skill set for the greater good of the Canadians. And I think it's in the messaging, not suggesting that, job ads need to shift drastically or adopt a model that we have, but I think like we're hearing it, you're hearing it as well, I think, from people coming through the process, like we're hearing that people have an interest in their area of expertise, but they're not necessarily seeing that in traditional recruitment, how they fit within that mold. So I think like that's a shift on its own that we need to consider for future recruitment.
So are you saying that's going to be part of the next recruitments for the fellowship program in the following years?
No, it's already part of ours. It's already part, like from day one, that's how we went ahead and recruited. And we, continue to tailor our job ads based on feedback that we receive from, individuals coming through. We also ask people, like who are not applying, because we target certain universities and certain programs within universities. And, we do kind of like a marketing research in some ways to kind of get a sense of like who is applying, but also who's not applying, and how can we entice them to apply. To Guy's point, or actually, no, it was Dave who mentioned, like the pandemic currently allows for a different type of landscape. And I think that that's to our benefit and to the benefit of people in regions as well, because I think it opens up so many doors for people in regions that might have been limited from being able to consider opportunities in the NCR, because, to David's point, not everyone is able to relocate, spouses and partners and families. And so I think that like now's the time to leverage that and allow regional folks to, partake in those opportunities as well. So I think there's just, la vision du futur est large, et puis c'est le temps de saisir et puis de créer des opportunités pour les gens à l'intérieur de la fonction publique, mais aussi pour les gens au travers du pays. Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de gens avec beaucoup de talent à l'intérieur et à l'externe, puis je pense que c'est là où est-ce qu'il faut vraiment mettre nos efforts. Puis c'est pas seulement de regarder ça avec un angle de NCR, la RCN, c'est souvent axé sur les besoins à Ottawa, Gatineau, si on veut, mais il faut regarder plus large et considérer les gens qui seraient disponibles avec le talent et les compétences pour acquérir les besoins opérationnels.
C'est un excellent point. Là, malheureusement, j'allais faire un petit tour de table avec vos plus grandes leçons apprises. Qu'est-ce que vous auriez fait différemment? Le Slido, les gens n'arrêtaient pas. Le chat, les gens n'arrêtent pas. Donc, on va compiler les questions auxquelles on n'a pas eu le temps de répondre et on va les distribuer à nos présentateurs aujourd'hui pour s'assurer qu'on publie les réponses dans notre wiki un petit peu plus tard. Donc, merci. Merci David, merci Valérie, merci Guy, vous avez été incroyables. Moi, je me fais faire une coupe de t-shirts avec quelques notions clés que j'ai retenues d'aujourd'hui. Merci pour ça. Mes enfants vont aussi les porter. So thank you everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for your participation today. You have been a wonderful audience, super interactive. We love that. We love hearing from you. And so please take a moment to let us know how we've done. Through the Slido, there's a survey up, and keep an eye out for our GC Collab page and wiki page for the recordings, the transcripts, the additional resources, and more information on future events. You may see these guys again. We look forward to seeing you again soon. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe. À la prochaine.